Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're talking about PROFACTOR twin turbo brushless technology. I'm just kidding, what does that even mean? But we're gonna be talking about PROFACTOR tools from Bosch with BITURBO Brushless Technology in this cordless circular saw. We're gonna go over it top to bottom. We're gonna put it on our test track, so stick with us. All right, guys, so this right here is the codename Strong Arm circular saw from Bosch, and it allegedly is in their PROFACTOR lineup using BITURBO Brushless Technology. What does that mean? It really means it's designed for like the pro using the PROFACTOR or the PROFACTOR lineup using their CORE18V PROFACTOR batteries, right? So that means the batteries using their 8 amp hour core 8 amp hour batteries and also their 12 amp hour PROFACTOR batteries. But those 12 amp hour PROFACTOR batteries, even though they are 18 volt, are exclusively only compatible with the PROFACTOR tools. And this right here is a PROFACTOR tool. So the model number on this one is GKS18v-25C, and you can get it with like a kit, like an N1 kit, which includes an 8 amp hour battery and stuff like that. But anyways, that's what this is about. So Bosch has been releasing a lot of stuff in their lineup, right? I mean, not just like washing machines and dishwashers and stuff like that, but also in their cordless tool lineup, right? And they've allegedly marketed themselves, created a newer market or a lineup, right, called PROFACTOR, which is more targeted towards the pros and supposed to bring more of that corded performance that the pros really need to get some of the jobs done and stuff. So we're going to be taking a look at this saw here, okay? So before we really get into it and talk more about some of our experiences using it, let's go ahead and get into the marketing hype. So this cordless circular saw is in their PROFACTOR lineup. It's the 18 volt strong arm and it's connected ready 7¼ inch circular saw. And its maximum performance is achieved with PROFACTOR batteries. Strong arm PROFACTOR performance delivers corded performance from an 18 volt 7¼ inch circular saw. Has 2.5 inch cut capacity, easily allows cutting for 2x material along the entire bevel range. We're gonna talk about our experience with that in a little bit. It also has electronic convenience brake, which stops the blade quickly for less downtime between repeated cuts. The BITURBO Brushless technology features brushless high-performance motor and drivetrain system engineered to take full advantage of the additional power generated by the CORE18 volt PROFACTOR batteries. And the CORE18 volt PROFACTOR batteries are compatible with Bosch 18 volt tools, but optimized to drive Bosch PROFACTOR tools with BITURBO Brushless technology for power comparable to most high demanding corded tools. It uses high power cells, 21700 cell technology combined with advanced battery design for greater efficiency, and the battery packs use CoolPack 2.0 technology to allow for better cooling. The connectivity module, which this saw is capable of, is sold separately, and if you buy it, allows you to connect to the Bosch Toolbox app. We can talk about that in a little bit. This saw will bevel up to 50 degrees and provides locking bevel in the front, and it has an auxiliary handle and also boasts a pivoting dust port that rotates 360 degrees, okay? So the height of the saw is around 11.4 inches, length is around 15.6, max bevel around 50 degrees. So that's the marketing stuff going on with this saw. It kind of says it's all marketed towards PROFACTOR performance and high demand stuff, and I can go ahead and tell you, even though we haven't put it on track yet, I'm not too sure how well that's going to work out. I did have a little bit of chance to use this saw a little bit, and I want to say roughly like less than 15 minutes of using it, we automatically went and put it back and got like something else out, okay? So that's just our immediate response to this. But, I mean, everyone has their own, okay? The other thing it didn't really cover on the marketing hype is this saw is rated at 5,000 no-load RPM speed, okay? So let's bring you in closer, take a better look at it, and then we'll go and put it on the track. So this is the business part of the saw. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So this right here, guard right here is nothing too spectacular. It is indented and kind of built or supported in a way where it's going to be pretty strong. The thing to note about that is it's pretty wide, as most Sidewinder type design saws are. It kind of makes it a little bit more stable. It does have little grooves on here, but it's not grooves that you could really use on the track. It's just really there to, I guess, give it more rigidity in a way, but it is there, okay? Other thing to note about this part is There is a rip fence guide port that you could put in here. It does include the wing nut that you do need, right, to get that going. This wing nut feels really cheap. I mean, it's a really cheap type of plastic feel that you get there, but it is there, okay? The other thing to note here is the blade guard, and this blade guard is it's a pretty nice blade guard actually. The other thing to note on here with that blade guard is this level, as you can see here, is pretty long, and it's a pretty solid feeling level, or a lever, whatever you want to call it. And some of the other ones that you see in other places are like plastic, short or whatnot, so I thought this was kind of refreshing. Actually does work really well, and the spring load actually is pretty strong. I know it's kind of new, but it feels pretty solid there, okay? The other good thing, the really great thing, if anything I could say, the best thing about this saw that I've noticed in using it is that this dust port that is right here is probably the best dust port I've ever seen or used on a cordless circular saw, okay? Obviously, it's included by default on almost all cordless on this saw, but it swivels 360 degrees, right? And even if you don't have a dust extraction system connected to it, just by turning the saw on, you can feel the air coming out of here almost like a mini blower, okay? I'm not sure if it's like fan assisted or whatnot in any means, but there's positive airflow coming out of here. And then when you're using it without the dust collection system hooked up to it, the dust management actually pushes most of the dust out of here automatically. So I think that in itself is probably the best thing I could really say about this saw, okay? So anyways, that's what you get with this side of it. While we're here on the front, we'll go ahead and talk about the handle, right? So the handle is right here. It's a top handle saw, and there's a safety lever, and it's a lever that presses down on here on both sides. As you can see here, it is a level or lever that you can press down either here or here. So if you're left-handed or right-handed, it's a pretty standard operational item, okay? So while we're here, let's move around to the front. So on the front, as you can see right here, this is probably one of the things I think they dropped the ball on pretty big here. I mean, this guide here, that's here, it's a sticker, okay? This is a black sticker with white labeling, and I think that's a major fail. Just a few minutes I've used it, like 15, 20 minutes I've used it. It's gotten gummed up, or it's got a bunch of sawdust on it, so you go to wipe it off, right? And you can kind of tell that the first layer of plastic, or clear plastic that's on top of this, the sticker slowly starting to deteriorate, okay? And most people know that if this is a professional work tool, it's going to get wet, okay? It's going to get sweated on, whatever it is. These things are just going to peel off and get nasty. So I think this is going to be pretty big thing that people are not going to like on this saw, mainly because, I mean, professional grade saws, you kind of don't want these cheap sticker things going on. You want that stuff stamped into the shoe, okay? So that's a huge miss there. The other thing on here is the bevel design, or the bevel system, which is a good system because it's a single lever design, right? And unlike the Milwaukee saw, this will stop here, okay? See, it will not spin forever, and it will not spin to the point where it falls off, okay? Like I said, unlike the Milwaukee one. So it does have a positive stop at 22.5 and 45, and it will bevel up to 50 degrees. I'm not sure if you can catch it on the mic here, but let's check it. Not sure if you heard that click or that click, but it does stop there, and it goes like that. Pretty straightforward, okay? The other thing to note on here is like a D-handle type design on the front of the saw. If you're cutting a lot, and you're cutting heavy stuff material, if you're right-handed, it's great. If you're left-handed, you're not so great, okay? Because your head's going to be on this side, right? And then what are you going to be doing, right, with this handle, okay? It's interesting because it's different than most saws, which have a stub sticking out right here with a little gimpy little handle like that. Well, in this saw, it's a pretty nice handle, okay? So the other thing while you're holding this saw is sight lines on a sidewinder style saw, right, are not very great for right-handed people because your hand is here and your head is right here, right? So you don't really get great sight lines. So on this saw, they've kind of solved that a little bit by cutting out a huge sight line where you could look right here. And if you're using it and you're right-handed, you easily get great sight lines from this side of the saw, or where your head is at, because of that huge opening. And I think that's the thing that most people may overlook if they aren't using it that much, but I think for this saw, it's actually done a really great job there, okay? Moving around to the back of the saw, here's the back of the saw, or the other side of the business end of the saw, or the left side of the saw, whatever you want to call it. The thing you'll notice here is that the motor is actually pretty compact, okay? That's actually good, mainly because it doesn't stick out past the shoe or the base. Okay, a lot of people will use like a framing square or a speed square or whatever to put on the side of here and, you know, cut something straight, right? So in this case, if you put it all the way down to get the full depth of cut, it will not catch on this motor housing like it does in most other Sidewinder style saws, right? So that actually is pretty good they've done with this. Okay, also here you'll see a little emblem or label, BITURBO Brushless. It's not stamped into the saw by any means. It literally looks like a decal they just put on there. The other thing to note on here is the depth guide adjustment. So this depth guide adjustment, unlike most other saws, is actually sticking out here on the left side, right? If you guys use most Sidewinder saws, you know most of those depth guide adjustments are right here between this handle and this blade guard system. But on this saw, they've brought that out here, which is actually really great in terms of idea and style, but the implementation of it actually I think is pretty bad. Mainly because, see this thing, it's entirely plastic. And look how much weight or play is in here without it even moving, okay? So it feels like cheap plastic, doesn't feel sturdy by any means, but when I first got the saw, it had an issue where it was like this, okay? Let me see if I can find that for you again. Where it came like this. And I kind of thought it was broken out of the box. And we bought this thing new, okay? Nobody sent this to us. It wasn't sponsored or any of that. But as you can see here, it's kind of in this situation where it doesn't lock very well. And I was like, huh, broken guide out of the system. So if you have something like this or you have this problem, what you need to do is you actually pull this back because it's spring loaded, and then you turn it, and then you move it up to the next next notch, and that way it kind of locks here and you can kind of press it down, right? So right, I pressed it down, but look how much play there still is, okay? I mean, it doesn't move the saw, or it holds the saw still at its depth, but it just doesn't feel solid, okay? And for a professional grade tool, it is definitely not as solid as it needs to be. All right, so that's what you get there. Other thing you'll also notice on here is the blade wrench. It's a Allen key, hex Allen key type thing you'll get. One of the things I noticed on here was, for at least when I was using it, it actually doesn't always fit in here very well. And a couple times I found it sticking out just like about this much, and I haven't used it even that heavily, right? So if it's falling out this much and you haven't even used it a lot, you can only imagine over a course of its lifetime, most people are probably gonna end up losing this. All right, watch this. I can't even get it in. Watch. So, right? Look at this. So this is also another problem I've seen with this saw, right? It can't even get this blade wrench back in. There it goes, right? But every once in a while, you'll kind of get it in and it'll kind of get stuck, but sometimes it'll go in really smooth, right? So that's something I found with this saw. I'm not sure what in the world's going on with that. They could definitely improve that a little bit. So moving around to this part of the saw, right, the battery system. So this battery system, pretty standard battery system. The other thing to note on here is, like most of the Bosch tools, at least the one that I've seen, this battery engagement system is spring loaded, okay? And that's good mainly because it absorbs some of the vibration and reduces it on the saw and the battery, so it kind of moves like this. This part will move with the battery. So I think in that part it's good, but nothing too much going on there, all right? The other thing, while you're back here, you can kind of look right here is where the depth guide gauge is, right? And this depth guide gauge is also pretty bad because here is the pointer right here at the top, but this, the gauge or whatever you want to call this thing on here is still a black sticker with white letterings, okay? It's just as bad as the front in terms of its longevity or reliability in the long run. I mean, it's just eventually going to peel off and you're going to eventually be really upset with this. But I just wanted to point that out because it is there. So that's what you really get with this saw, in and out of it. I mean, at least that's the close-up part of it, right? The other thing we didn't talk about too much is maybe this connected toolbox microchip thing or whatnot, right? So it is connect the Toolbox app compatible, right? You have to download the app and get all the stuff. You have to buy the little chip that goes inside and take this out, plug it in, and close it and connect it up with the app, and that's fine. Like I said, in my opinion, it's a little bit gimmicky or whatnot, but you know, everyone has their own opinion. The other thing is the blade spindle lock guide adjust or lock is right here, and it's pretty simple to use, mainly because you just, even if you have big hands or big gloves, you stick it through here and you can hold that here and you can work on the blade here, right? So that one I think is pretty nice. But other than that, that's what you really get with this saw, okay? So now let's go ahead and talk about the part that everybody really wants to know. How well does it cut? How does it perform? In order to do that, we're gonna need to put it on the track. So we didn't do that yet, but I can just tell you from using it for like the first like 10, 15, 20-ish minutes that I'm not sure how it's gonna do on the track, but we're gonna use the 8 amp hour PROFACTOR battery that this is designed for, allegedly, to deliver that powerful corded PROFACTOR performance. And we're gonna run it through our double stack and triple stack test. Unfortunately, we do not have a 12 amp hour battery, and all the 12 amp hour batteries in the stores were sold out. They just didn't have it. And trying to order it online, ship it to the store, and getting that, actually was sold out online once, right? And then we tried to figure out how to get it, wasn't there. But now it is available, but it's gonna take like 7 days or something to arrive at the store. And it's like, okay, well, that's just like forever. Not only that, that 12 amp hour battery is even more expensive than the Milwaukee 12 amp hour battery. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and run this on the track with the PROFACTOR 8 amp hour battery fully charged. And just so that you're aware, we've cycled this battery, I wanna say maybe like 4 to 5 times already by just using it and using the battery on some other stuff. So it's like a conditioned battery by now. We're gonna go ahead and use it. We're gonna put it on track. We'll be right back. All right, you guys, so I hope you guys caught those numbers because those numbers went by pretty fast, okay? But not as fast as some of the other saws that we've tested, okay? But that's just feeling. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the numbers to figure out what the numbers really say, all right? So we took this PROFACTOR strong arm saw and we ran it with this PROFACTOR 8 amp hour core 18 volt battery, okay? It literally says PROFACTOR on the battery, okay? This saw is recommended to use with the 8 or the 12 amp hour PROFACTOR batteries. We don't have the 12, so we kind of went with the 8. Okay, so taking a look at the first run or the double stack test with the 8 amp hour battery. First number 5.05 seconds. Second run 5.33 seconds. Third run 5.07 seconds. Take an average of the three. The average comes out to 5.15 seconds. Okay, moving on to the triple stack test. First run comes in at 7.16 seconds. Second run comes in at 7.03 seconds. Third run comes in at 6.56 seconds. Taking an average of those three runs, the average comes out to 6.92 seconds, okay? So the total performance number, which we get by summing up the two averages, comes in at 12.07 seconds, okay? So that puts it just behind the Makita GKS18v-25 with a 2.5 amp hour battery and just ahead of the Milwaukee rear handle 2830 with a 5 amp hour battery, okay? Which means this saw currently is in 10th place on our leaderboard on that performance chart, okay? So just to remind you, we use a brand new test blade. We use the same blade in every saw that we test. They're all brand new. The batteries are fully charged, all cycled through and stuff like that. So that's what we get. So one of the things that we also did, try to figure out what to do, was we took the saw and tested it on this 4 amp hour core 18 volt battery. This is not a PROFACTOR battery, but it's a core 18 volt battery, which is pretty much their 21700 series cells in the batteries, okay? So this 8 amp hour battery is probably about 2 of these, okay? Meaning they probably have sets in parallel to get that going. So to be fair, before we go ahead and look at numbers, the saw, like I said, is recommended to use 8 or 12, but we did it on the 4, mainly because there's no 12s around for us to be had, okay? So when you run this saw with a 4 amp hour core 18 volt battery, first run comes in at 7.31 seconds. Second run comes in at 8.2 seconds. Third run comes in at 8.44 seconds. Take an average of 3 runs. Average comes in at 7.98 seconds, okay? So moving on to the triple stack performance test. First run comes in at 13.33, second run 15.09, third run 14.47 seconds. Taking an average of that comes in at 14.3 seconds, all right? So if we take the total performance number, that number comes in at 22.28 seconds, okay? What does that mean? That means with a 4 amp hour battery, that's about 10 seconds slower than with the 8 amp hour battery through the performance test track, okay? So with the 4 amp hour battery, that actually puts this saw currently in 12th place, right behind the Milwaukee M18 fuel rear handle 2830 with a 5 amp hour battery. But it is still faster than the Makita subcompact 6.5 inch blade XSH04, okay? To be fair, that's kind of in a subcompact class. Anyways, so what can we say about this saw? All right, so Bosch has been doing this weird thing of, you know, creating code names or something like that for their tools, right? I'm not sure who's doing that at Bosch marketing, and it's not really picking up, so you may need to try to figure something like that out. Maybe they can continue or whatnot, but they need to figure out what's going on with that because it's confusing some of the users and it's probably also confusing them too. Not sure. Anyways, the point is that this one is codenamed Strong Arm, okay? And the PROFACTOR lineup, which Bosch claims, is geared towards the professional users. I think this saw is a little bit far of a miss from that professional user by any means. There's a few big misses on here, right? Besides the performance. We're completely not even talking about the performance at this point, right? So there's a few things missing. The gauge, guide, emblems, whatever you want to call these things, it's a sticker, okay? Not only that's a sticker, but the rear depth guide adjustment is also a sticker, okay? It's a sticker, black sticker with white lettering. That's a pretty big miss, I think, mainly instead of being stamped on or something like a screwed on gauge or ruler, whatever. That the sticker is just a big miss, mainly because it's going to fall off, it's going to get wet. It's inevitable that some of the tools are going to get wet. Maybe you're outside, it's sprinkling, someone put a sprinkler on, sweat, anything could happen, okay? So that's a big miss. It's also missing a rafter hook, okay, which is also a big miss. The depth guide adjustment, as we talked about earlier, this thing is plastic and very loose and finicky no matter really what you do with it. And the bevel is kind of okay. Some of the good things they did do with the saw is the dust collection for a regular framing style saw. I think it's generally pretty good, even if you're not hooking it up to a dust collection system. The dust port swivels through 160 degrees, is included by default. Doesn't look like it's going to have any problems or anything like that. The wrench, the blade Allen key wrench, I think I mentioned it before, but during our testing I also found it slowly like seeping out, okay? So if you may actually end up losing that, but not too much of a big problem. It's just a standard Allen key. The one good thing I really do like about the saw is it only has 5,000 RPMs, but it feels very refined, meaning like some of the Makita saws, you'll see that they feel really refined when they're using it, right? But this Bosch saw feels just a hair more refined. It's got a really, really nice feeling to it when you're powering it up and using it. It feels very smooth. That's actually something they've done pretty well. But the performance kind of speaks for itself, right? I mean, granted, it is an 18-volt tool, so it's not really going to have a good chance, with all things being equal, laws of physics and, you know, motor engineering and stuff like that. It's not going to really be able to compete with the higher voltage saws or whatnot, like the 36 volts or the 54 volts or whatnot. But still, with an 18-volt PROFACTOR 8-amp-hour battery, it's not necessarily putting out, quote-unquote, the best numbers, but still putting out pretty good numbers for an 18-volt saw, right? So if you're a professional framer, right, I'm not sure, if you're a professional framer and that's like your day-to-day go-to job, right, then this is probably not going to be the saw for you, right? Unless you're completely already invested in the Bosch platform. I'm sure you could probably get by with this and probably some 8-amp-hour or 12-amp-hour PROFACTOR batteries, right? Keep in mind, if you do get a 12-amp-hour PROFACTOR battery, I believe, according to the marketing material or everything that you're reading on the manual, those 12-amp-hour batteries are only compatible with PROFACTOR tools. So don't get those trying to use it on, you know, non-PROFACTOR tools. But I mean, like I said, you could probably get by with this saw. You may need a few batteries or a lot of 12-amp-hour batteries or whatnot, but there's probably going to be better options for you if you're going to be doing that, right? So if you're just doing general remodeling and you're not doing heavy-duty cuts or full depth cuts or cutting large pieces of lumber all the time, you'll probably get by with this saw. It'll be fine. I mean, Bosch stuff generally lasts pretty well. It's very durable, right? I don't think I've had any Bosch tools that have ever failed yet, right? Batteries aside, but those eventually fail eventually, right? Like they make some pretty good tools. Like for instance, I think the Bosch SDS Plus or the Bulldog Extremes or whatnot, the 18-volt ones, those are probably some of the best 18-volt SDS Plus tools on the market, right? I mean, I'm just going off experience and just using it. We haven't done any testing. But anyways, the point is that if you're in the Bosch lineup, it's a good saw. If you're a day-to-day framer and that's your go-to day job, it's probably not the best saw for you. You probably need to go look into something else. But if you're already committed to the Bosch platform and that's not your job, you'll be fine with this saw. Don't let the performance numbers really scare you away, okay? So like I said, the performance numbers are really great, right? And I can always sarcastically say, it's not the fastest saw, therefore it's not the best saw, right? But if you're in the lineup and you have batteries, it's a good saw, don't get me wrong. There's just some things about it I just don't like. But other than that, like good dust collection, you can't really go wrong. It's probably gonna outlast all the batteries and stuff that you have, no real issue. Anyways, so what can we say? Like I said, if you're in it, get it. Hope this video's helped you guys out. If you have any other questions or whatnot, just let me know. But hopefully this has given you a good idea of some of the PROFACTOR marketing that they've Bosch kind of put together for PROFACTOR tools and marketing towards professional and things like that. But other than that, hope this video helped you guys out. Stay tuned for more videos. We're going to try to crank out some more of these videos and things like that and try to give y'all an idea of what's really going on. But stay tuned, have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.